Hi, John Lay here at Talented Learning. Welcome to another installment of our Executive Briefing series, where we travel around the world virtually and visit the best and the most innovative learning technology providers and learning technology system providers in the world. And we learn about their solution, and then we get to see a demonstration. Up today is Omega Notes from a neighboring town, State College, Pennsylvania. Omega Notes, take it over.
Yes, of course. Well, thank you so much for having us here today. So I am Drew Lang, the founder and CEO of Omega Notes. And Omega Notes is a social learning platform designed to engage this generation of students and learners in a social collaborative environment to improve learning outcomes. So we had originally started as a company here in State College only a few years ago as a way simply for students to work together, share notes and ideas around challenging topics, and essentially connect the students that need help with those that could provide help. That was the whole genesis of Omega Notes. And as we started to grow and roll out to different universities across the US, we had faculty that were saying, hey, this is incredibly unique. Can we put our own content with this and create these kind of customized what we call course packs around this social environment? And we said, yeah, that'd be fantastic. So we ended up building out the platform to include these course packs from which we can incorporate content from nearly any publisher or content provider. And then students, faculty, administrators can collaborate around this content to really build a community of learning. That concept is even more important in the age of COVID-19 and coronavirus when there's remote learning, distance learning. How do you communicate with one another? How do you keep track of who's doing what, where things are? It's one thing to nudge your friend when you're in class with them, but when you're all remote, how do you work together? So that's Omega Notes. At the same time, for our administrators and enterprise level accounts, we offer detailed advanced analytics explaining student comprehension, engagement, social feedback, even course feedback. What changes would the students like to see to their learning? What would they like to see improved? What students are working well in groups? What students aren't working well in groups? Again, the whole idea here is, number one, engage the students through the social learning environment, and then number two, provide the analytics to measure retention, accreditation, other key administrative institutional goals.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so the solution then would lay over top of a learning management system or alongside of it, or has nothing to do with it? How does that work?
So we tie into pretty much any learning management system. We offer tailored integrations based upon our institutional clients' needs. So tie in for create a single sign-on and a seamless user experience for both students, faculty, and administrators.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that would be what with the normal like Blackboard, Canvas, Neo, those type, or yeah.
Those, like a D2L, even a Moodle or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Really just depends upon what the institution is looking for.
Mm-hmm. And what are the detailed analytics revealing? What trends with collaborative learning are out there that you've discovered?
So what we're seeing is that number one, students, if you ask them what they're missing from their collegiate experience, they're saying we want the social experience. Okay, look at coronavirus is a prime example of things here. So students say, yeah, I want to go back to campus in the fall, but yet there are students that go fully online for the like Penn State World Campus, for example. There's that segment of students. And what the surveys are saying is the students prefer the flexibility of online learning, but they want that campus experience. So with the platform here, they can be engaged and ask their friends, hey, do you understand this topic? Do you want to get together and work for the next exam? They can even ask questions anonymously if they're afraid to raise their hand in like a 300-person class or something like that. But in terms of the data itself, what it's revealing, we're seeing many different trends. Of course, it's a bell curve depending upon where the students are and so forth, but particularly more social the students are, the better the learning outcomes are going to be. Okay,
Well,
so it's providing that environment, providing this ecosystem per se, in which there aren't all these silos like traditionally you have an LMS, then students might be communicating with each other via Snapchat or Twitter or something like that, and then communicate with the professor via email, and then this and this and this. So you have all these
hmm
silos. Okay, with us, we're
hmm
tearing down those barriers, and by tearing down those barriers, we can collect even more enriched data to really report back for institutional goals. Again, retention. Okay, look at the students, understand where their learning is, where their questions are, what needs to be reviewed the next day for class,
hmm
uh, and even understand if they're going to, if there's a chance that a specific student's going to fail the exam before the exam happens. Okay, so real time, predictive, those types of things.
hmm Interesting. Interesting. Instructional designer in me loves it.
Yeah, and we've worked with many instructional designers and so forth, and yeah, they're really in demand right now, to say the least.
Yeah, how about it? Got lucky here on our profession.
Yeah,
All right, well, can you show it to us?
yeah, of course, of course. And for that, I'll turn it over to Matt, and Matt can walk us through a demo.
Absolutely. Let me share my screen here.
Oh,
There
you still
we
present?
are. Perfect. Now, we've all heard this 100 times by now, but can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. So before I hop into the platform, I want to give a bit of a high-level overview of what how the platform addresses certain challenges. So you can look at those challenges into three different segments. First and foremost, in the notebook right here, we're looking at the collaborative element, the social hub where students can work together. The next layer is the content. So what makes Omega Notes particularly unique is giving students a reason and incentive to work together, right? Instead of just being a social hub where students can ask questions without any context, our course pack system, which I'll show here briefly, offers content which students can collaborate around. The last element of our system is the analytics, which Drew had mentioned, and I'll briefly show the analytics here. We'll go into more detail later. The analytics is essentially an administrator's or a professor's dashboard for measuring learning outcomes to understand where learners are positioned according to the institution's goals. With that overarching, a theory there, I want to dive into some of the specifics. I'm going to go back to the notebook here. So in the notebook, as I had mentioned, this is the social learning hub. When a student is taking notes in a course pack, if they are on a particular page, for example, we have Dr. Chelsea Justice here. She's the instructor for this course. Dr. Chelsea had asked a specific question, and you can actually see the context of that question, right? So here, the specific course is Org 210 Business Ethics, case study assignment, page 11. We can go ahead and click View here, and this is going to bring up a larger collaborative perspective. And from here, we can see a large snapshot of the question and getting down into some of the more collaborative elements. Almost like we've been compared a lot to Pinterest meets Facebook, meets a Google Docs. It's bringing a lot of the power of those separate systems together into one collaborative and academic-focused hub. So from here, this is almost like a discussion board replacement from a Canvas or D2L. The professor had posed a specific question and a student responded. In addition to that more formalized learning, we can also have some more ad hoc, informal, what we could call hallway conversations, which is particularly important right now with the transition to distance-only education, right? Students are really missing that the hallway conversations, the informal conversations they can have while sitting next to each other in class. So here, Latricia had posted a study group, which we can pop this open and see there's a Zoom session here. At that particular time, students can click on that Zoom session, and we have some fellow peers here that had mentioned whether or not they're joining. I'm signed in here as Stephanie, which is our fictitious student. Going into some other elements, you can see there's the ability to share different kinds of media like photos. We have a like and a dislike system, which we like to define as sorting by relevance, particularly when it comes to notes. Right? More popular notes are going from rise to the top, give students the ability to have that collaborative learning experience, right? Get each other's thoughts on what the content looks like. A few other pieces I want to show here in the notebook. Of course, we have the ability to take notes, flashcards, questions. These can be public, private, or even in a group setting. So if there's a specific learning group that a professor or an educator wants to assign, they have the ability to do that, as well as specific tags and then some advanced sorting options. All public information goes out to the class as a whole. All private information is retained by that student. So if they want to take private notes in this, it can still act as that notebook hub, so they don't have to have separate systems. Another big element of the notebook is the ability to filter down specific content. So here, by tags, by privacy. So if I only want to see my private notes, or if I want to see group notes from a specific individual, I have the ability to do that all within the collaborative hub. So in this case, we have one group here, group 4, that Stephanie's part of. But we can see we only have one note in this context. Now, where most of the collaboration happens is around the content itself. With that, I'm going to hop into the course pack systems. Let me go to course packs. And Stephanie here has access to multiple course packs. And that really gets into one of the most powerful elements, I would say, of the platform, is the ability to centralize all of your content into one learning experience. So you'll see very often in a learning management system, particularly nowadays, professors, administrators will want to have a focus on affordability as well as different content aggregation. So they might have a conventional textbook, like let's say McGraw-Hill, Pearson. They also might send you to a website like Lumen Learning, or even OER, like OpenStax. A lot of these courses will use a variety of content, and it creates a very disjunct experience for students and professors because you're sending everybody out to all these different locations. Omega Notes can aggregate all of that content into one cohesive experience for the students. So if you want to have publisher content alongside OER content, alongside website content, we have the ability to do that. And let me actually demonstrate that. I'm going to go to our microbiology course here. We're going to view the contents. And here we can see all the different pieces of this specific course pack. This specific course pack is largely based on OER content because a lot of our clients have a focus on student affordability. In here, really want to demonstrate quickly our self-assessments. So if we go to chapter 1, a student marks this as complete. They have the ability to give a self-assessment on certain pieces of material. Really, one of the great elements of these self-assessments is, as opposed to something like an SRTE, we work a lot with Penn State. That is their end of semester evaluations. A lot of this feedback directly from the students comes before it's too late, right? It comes at the end of the course. So of course, universities can take that and design the course going into the next semester, but they don't really have the ability to be reactive to the immediate student's needs. These self-assessments on a section-by-section basis give that feedback directly to professors so that they can be proactive in their education and individualize that experience. I'm going to hop into chapter 1 here. I actually already have this open because I want to demonstrate a few key pieces. The first element is continuing on the vein of assessments. We have these embedded or ingrained self-assessments. Now, at key points within a section, as the student is learning, these pop up and ask the student how they're performing, right? This is a self-assessment. So in this case, a student can indicate, well, actually, I'm not really understanding this content too well. I can leave feedback, hopefully a bit more relevant than that. Click continue. And now that is going to report that information directly to the professor in both a quantitative and qualitative capacity. Not only that, but there's going to be a lot of data that comes with that feedback, such as how long a student was in a particular section leading up to that. So it gives the professor the context of where an individual student is struggling, and then equally beneficial on the aggregate as all of the students are rating their content. It captures a snapshot of how that entire course is doing. Some other elements here in the e-reader. Now, a lot of the features here are what you would expect in any kind of reader. Now, we of course have highlighting. Students can draw on content, sort by different kinds of content, etc. The particularly unique element, though, is the collaboration and how that is embedded within the content itself. So that you can see as we actually mosey through the pages here, we are getting key pieces of collaboration from fellow students. So we have Annabelle here had left a note. We can say, actually, I really like that note and I want to leave a comment. Great. Oh. And that goes directly to Annabelle. Annabelle gets a notification, and you can actually continue that thread right there within the content. Stephanie here had asked a question, and some fellow students came in and had answered that question. So this is great from a few perspectives. Again, it emphasizes that hallway talk, that genuine interaction between students, but it also encourages students to work together, to collaborate together, and to self-manage certain questions, right? So in many ways, it alleviates a lot of administrative time that professor would have to use if curating emails, for example. One other key element I want to show you here is what we call our incognito questions and notes. So incognito hides the identity of that student to their peers and to the professor. The key element here is trying to bring certain students out of their shell. If those students are shy and don't necessarily have a question that they might fear they'll be picked on, or don't want to admit that they might have missed a lecture or an assignment, they can ask that question, get a response from their peers without the fear of kind of reprisal from their peers. We found that really encourages some more genuine collaboration, and eventually more and more students are working together. So it's a great way to get all students interacting within content. Mm-hmm. Taking all of this, I want to pivot this to our analytics. And I'm going to show analytics from two different points of view. This first point of view is from the administrative side. So let's say, in this case, this is a provost view because we actually have access to the entire college. If I scroll down here in our engagement tab, we can see some key analytics, time spent studying, session lengths, right? The number of notes taken. We have these word clouds, which help gauge the sentiment of a course. Now, the interesting part from this perspective is we aggregate this information all the way from the page and individual student view up to the college and university view. So these particular graphs aren't measuring individual courses, it's measuring an aggregation of data all the way up to the college level. So in this case, and mind you, this is some mock data, so this is not exactly representative of what you would see in a genuine institution, but in this case, we have the College of Arts being compared to the College of Agriculture, being compared to the College of Business here. So this allows administrators to measure certain learning objectives at a very high level, right? To understand what's working at their institution, what isn't, giving them the ability to manage all of this information in real time to communicate more effectively with all of their staff. They, of course, can then aggregate down to lower levels. So if they wanted to go to the biology department, from there down to the course level, to the course pack level, which is individual pieces of content, all the way down to specific sections and then pages. I'm going to now transition to the professor perspective. And here really quick. Now, the professor portal is very similar to the administrative portal, but it delivers information in a different capacity, right? With being FERPA compliant, we're only giving information for students which that professor is responsible for their learning. Now, one really interesting component here, particularly from a professor perspective, is what we call query. Now, query is an acronym, questions with extremely relevant information. It's a pseudo AI that helps deliver relevant information to a professor in a question and answer based form, right? These professors are busy. They're not data scientists, at least most of them are not. They have a question, they want an immediate answer. Query gives them the ability to do that. So in this case, what are the study habits of my students? A professor can ask that. And then we deliver a series of relevant graphs and information that helps them answer that question. So in this case, we can see time spent studying. We can see the student activity, when they are most active, right? We can see the self-assessment type, whether or not students are idle in pieces of content or not. We can see when the most common study time is for specific students. We can then go into specific questions about quizzes, right? How are students doing on quizzes? And in this case, there's no information on that, just because there's no quiz scores in here. But in a typical context, we have some scatter charts that help compare students. It help monitor learning objectives on the aggregate, but also reporting specific information regarding individual students, again, to help individualize that education. I'm going to go down to our microbiome course here to show a bit more of analytics. And you can see here, as we're going down into chapters, we're in chapter 1. We have a couple of ways we can consume this content. One right now is the student view, but we can also view a content perspective. Now, what's the difference between the student view and the content view? It's really how the information is assembled, right? It's two different ways to ask and answer a similar question. One question might be, how are my individual students doing? Because I want to be able to reach out to one specific student that might be struggling, versus how are my students doing on the whole, right? Where specifically are my students struggling? So if we go down to the number of questions asked, right? It looks like we have one question here on page 6. If we look at the number of flashcards, we have several flashcards on page 7. The number of comments, we have quite a few comments on page 6 here. So it's giving a snapshot of where students are active in the content. And when you combine that with some of the other great tools we have here, like the self-assessments, it starts to give you an idea of where students are performing well and where students are struggling. That gives a professor the ability to, understanding what their learning objectives are, focus then on where students might need more help on the whole, as well as reaching out to those individual students that might not be performing as well as they would like. So we can see here we have some particular pages where students are doing very well and some where they are not. You can, of course, combine this self-assessment data along with quiz information, a different kind of assessment, seeing how students are self-managing, how confident they are versus how they're actually performing. You bring all this information together and it starts to form some very interesting data that currently universities don't have access to, and how they can better refine their education. So, yeah, I want to turn it over to some questions here.
I like it. I like it. How do you overcome the course packs? Seem to be the same course packs that would be in the LMS. Do organizations have to recreate them to get the collaborative, or universities have to recreate them to get the collaborative benefit?
We make that. I'll let you continue, Drew.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, no, they don't need to do that by any means. It really depends on how their LMS is set up, because quite often, the professor would love to have a Pearson textbook or something in the LMS, but for copyright reasons, that's usually not possible. Okay, so when you have these external bits of content that the copyright holder is not the university, it creates that very fragmented, all these different silos. We're the ones that are aggregating that and bringing in these silos. And then, of course, since we're tying into the LMS, we're creating a unified experience. That said, if a professor wants to post his or her own material in these course packs, that's fine too. That's fine. It really just depends upon how they want to structure the course and what materials are best for their learning.
Wow. Wow. Well, I certainly see the efficacy of what you're doing and the applicability of it probably much broader than just universities. My kids are, like all kids are essentially taking all online classes right now, not this summer, but they will. And, I would see the applicability at a, K through, well, they're in high school. So certainly a high school level on being
Yeah.
able to share that. A lot of unique things. I've seen interactive PDFs before, but it's nice to see, just that the collaborative nature of collaborating on a PDF or really on any written document, making those notes and documenting what page and what chapter is really relevant, making that interactive PDF that changes the comments based on the location inside a particular document is also pretty slick. All that has application in the corporate side of the market also. In addition, love the analytics on both perspectives of that to show once again the efficacy. There's a lot of associations out there that run university type courses, like American Hospital Association, for example. Have 6 or 8 or 13-week courses with a cohort, as they call a class in that industry. And, they do the same type of stuff. I mean, it would have great applicability across a lot of the educational associations, which are another 80,000 organizations out in the U.S. alone. Yeah, I like what you guys are doing. It's really solid. I see how it's applicable. I guess probably the biggest challenge, I see from my perspective is that the incremental nature of your solution. So it'd be something organizations have to invest incrementally, and so the key to that, I guess, is quantifying the efficacy of what and that allows you to make that business case to why you would want to do that. So, and you guys are strong on the quantification already with really nice analytics. So, keeping going in that direction to continue to make the case on why the incremental is necessary. And you're already articulating that nicely with bringing the silos together and the pieces. So, yeah, all in all, good job. I can see where you fit into the marketplace and where you can make a difference.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your insight.
Well, thanks for joining us today. It was a pleasure to meet you and learn about your solution, and look forward to seeing how you guys progress in the market. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.